Welcome to Audible Sportscast, your home for all things sports. Welcome back, everybody. Brett and Jeff here. How's it going, Brett?
Good.
That's good. We missed you last week, but you're back now.
Correct.
And we're a third of the way into the NFL season, and it's going exactly how everyone predicted, hasn't it?
No.
Exactly. And it's interesting to say the least. I mean, I saw a stat earlier today that touchdowns are down at this point in the season compared to the last two seasons. Is that bad offense? Is that good defense? I would say probably a little bit of both, but who knows? There's a couple
defenses this year, but
I think it's. I mean, I heard some people talk about this earlier today. It's more potentially these teams are being more just bend but don't break. And you see a lot of teams going for it a lot more in fourth down situations where maybe they could have taken a field goal.
I can agree with that in the aspect of if you were to look at, let's say, the top 15 teams in the NFL, most of them, if you would have asked them, even if they were going to be 3-3, they probably would have told you no.
True. I mean, it's still a lot of season left. I mean, a team that's 3-3 could go on a run right now, aka a lot of the teams people expected.
I don't think Pete Carroll would have told you the Seahawks would be 3-3 right now.
No, I mean, I told everyone they're not even going to win a game at the start of the season.
I mean, I think Pete Carroll would have said 3-3 is generous. Very.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you'd hope your head coach has some optimism, but I know exactly what you mean.
But but if you just go by the records alone, we just talked about the Chargers a couple weeks ago, if they're for real or not. You said no, I said yes. They're 4-2, but they're still in that who knows category.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun thing about records right now is they can turn around so quickly. I mean, don't forget the Bears 2 seasons ago were 5-1.
Have the best record in the league.
I mean, the Eagles are still undefeated. So.
Oh yeah, the Eagles. I forgot about the Eagles.
But Eagles and another team kind of maybe not surprising, but
I think their defense. I don't know. I think
we'll talk about them in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
About all these teams. Mid-season we'll definitely do a mid-season kind of, how things are going. But hey, let's talk about what we normally talk about at this point: fantasy football. And I know you weren't with us last week, Brett, but the week before you had pretty good starts and sits. Start Jimmy G, sit Matt Stafford. Both of those things are good. Last week, Cody, who's not with us today, said to start Melvin Gordon. And if anyone watched the Monday night game, Melvin Gordon didn't even get a touch in the second half, let alone even on the field. So that wasn't the best, but I agreed with it too. So, but then his sit, James Robinson, was a very good sit. Me, on the other hand, I'm on a rough patch. This is the second straight week where I've told someone, or told all of y'all, to sit or to start somebody, and it was not a good start. J.K. Dobbins had 1.5 points in PPR leagues. He was hurt. Can't really get, you never know when someone's going to get hurt, so it's whatever. But I did say to sit CeeDee Lamb, 12.7 points. That's kind of on that kind of middle ground.
I would say that's more on the you're wrong.
It's closer to wrong than right, definitely.
Yes,
but
correct.
If you sat him and you had a player that had more points, then hey, good for you. Unless one of those players is someone who didn't, like me. I mean, I put up in one of my leagues 50 points for a fantasy team, which if anyone knows fantasy football, you kind of want to be at least 100 plus. So it's not been a good week for me in anything I've been doing. But Brett, what do you got for me for fantasy starts and sits this week?
Well, I don't know if this will be surprising, but I think you got to go with Dobbs with Green Bay.
Okay, I've done I've done him a couple weeks and it's not been the best, but this seems like a time for him.
I think the Packers are going to come out and, they're not playing too much competition this week, which doesn't say much because they haven't played the greatest competition lately anyways, but I don't think they lose to the Commanders, so I'm going to... And actually, I'd probably pick the Packers defense, just adding on to this game.
I mean, Taylor Heineke's his first game with Carson Wentz now out for a couple of weeks. I mean, Heineke can...
Shocker, Carson Wentz is out.
But Heineke can be frisky. Don't forget, he almost beat the Buccaneers the year they won the Super Bowl in the playoffs. Don't forget it.
I know.
But I mean, I would be questioned on how decent of a game it'll be against the Packers. I mean, that front seven's pretty good.
I just think the Packers are going to come out and try to score a ton of points.
Oh, I definitely agree. It'll be kind of depending on how they do it on the run or in the air. And with no Randall Cobb, Christian Watson seems to not be a part of that offense still. I mean,
the only thing he's really done is a couple end arounds. That's it.
Yeah, they've definitely tried to keep it away from him when it comes to catching the ball, which hopefully, I mean, he was always kind of known for being an inconsistent pass catcher, but everything else is there, so hopefully he figures it out. But
just might not be in Green Bay.
Maybe. Who would have thought that he wouldn't have been the best rookie they drafted? But that's besides the point. Dobbs is looking good. But what's your sit? Oh, you have two starts for me.
Sorry. Yeah, I think you sit Russell Wilson this week. That'll be my sit. And I think you start the Jets defense.
I like it. I mean, I'm sure not a lot of people are still starting Russell Wilson unless they really have to. But, yeah, I
guess
mean,
it depends on how deep a league you're in, but
true.
I think some people start Russell Wilson because he's Russell Wilson.
True. They kind of expect him, like, this week to be the week he kind of finds himself. I don't blame people, but, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be starting him anytime soon. He's kind of more of a guy now where I need to see something from him before I ever try starting him again. So definitely he would be someone on my sit list for a very, very long time at this rate. But I mean, Jets defense, I like that. I think I'm actually trying to pick them up in one of my leagues. So
I mean, like, fun fact that when I was listening to the Packer game last week, because I do live in Wisconsin, Quinnen Williams, when he plays against the run, when he's in against the run, they only give up like 3 yards carry. Average. When he's not in, 5.5.
Yeah, he is a dog, and he's kind of. They finally kind of have put a lot of pieces around him. CJ Mosley's kind of healthy now. They brought in Quan Alexander.
And I think the coach has really pumped him up too. I think he's a good coach for that team.
Definitely. I mean, he was coming in as this hype defensive coordinator type guy, and now they're finally showing it, and they're running the ball well. This seems like a Jets team 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of reminds me about Rex Ryan Jets team with young Mark Sanchez.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my starts and sits for this week, I feel like, I mean, this might be an obvious one, but maybe some people kind of are questioning it because we don't know what he's going to be like now that he's off of his suspension. But I feel like you have to start D-Hop if you have him, because who else is Kyler Murray really throwing it to? They went out and got Robbie Anderson, but do you really trust Robbie Anderson?
Well, Marquise Brown is out for a while, I think. They're not saying that, but it's going to be... he might be out for till another 7-8 games, I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, we could see a boost for Rondale Moore. They've always kind of tried to get him into the action. AJ Green seems like a shell of his old self.
Well, the problem is when you draft speedsters, look at it. Isabella never panned out for him. You know, True. I'm not sure Rondale Moore, he was obviously a higher draft pick, and problem is, I just think when you have high draft picks like that, highly rated players, when you have them 4th on your depth chart, 5th on your depth chart, their confidence goes from sky high down.
Yep. And, I mean, we'll see how, this new kind of wide receiver core will blend together now with D-Hop back. Is he going to be, completely healthy and in shape? We'll see. Hopefully he is, because I'm starting him this week. I think y'all should start him too. But a sit I have this week, and this is a tough one for me because I've been going back and forth on this one. all day long. And I think, while I've said in the past this is a guy you have to start every week, I think might be a week where you sit Aaron Jones. I know you talked a lot about the Packers, and we don't necessarily know, like, I've always said they need to get a run game going, but this seems like a week where Aaron Jones might not be the man to do it for them against this defense. I feel like we saw it, honestly, with the Bears against them. They were able to attack the passing game.
See, I think you got to watch out. That's where the passing game is where he could make his.
I know, and I'm going back and forth on it, even if I should be saying Aaron Jones. I feel like
because Dillon doesn't really. They don't even have him in much on passing downs. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, because A.J. Jones the last couple of weeks has not gotten potentially the touches that he should have been, this could be a week we see him more, since he when you look at the averages, he did kind of play better than Aaron Jones. But we'll see. It's always a question between both of those running backs, which one to start or sit. But I'm gonna go with Aaron Jones as my sit. That's a risky one, and I am throwing all the dice in this week.
I don't think it's that risky, considering it's a two-back system too. You know.
True. I mean, it's an inconsistent offense, to say.
I'm surprised neither of us has said sit Zeke every week. Just kidding.
I mean, I don't want to talk about Zeke.
Oh, he's on one of your fantasy teams. Sorry.
No, he's not. He was last year. But and years prior. I mean, I've taken my fair share of Cowboys running backs over the years, even way before they got Zeke. But let's move on from that. Speaking of, I guess not really speaking of anything, but let's look at our games of the week for this week. Last week, the week prior, I swept. This week, was worried I was going to do the quite opposite. But I went 1-2, bringing my season in 9-7. Cody, who picked games, he went 2-1. And Brett, you're at 5-7 for the season. Obviously, you did not pick any games this past week, but you did go 2-1 the week prior, which does bring your thing to 5-7. But what do you got for me this week for our fans, and what game should they be watching?
Well, it's not Thursday Night Football.
Oh, the last two Thursday Night Footballs have been a doozy. What, you don't think this one will make up for it?
No, I do not. No, I think Chiefs-Niners and Colts-Titans.
Ooh, Colts-Titans. That's an interesting one. I do have also the Chiefs-49ers as one of mine. Who you got winning the Chiefs-49ers?
I have the Chiefs, but not by, we'll say by 6.
I agree with the Chiefs aspect of that. Both of these teams are definitely looking for bounce back games, and while the 49ers
Jimmy
defense,
G's been playing pretty well lately, so I don't know.
I feel like
it's their defense that hasn't been playing as great.
And when you're going against the Chiefs offense, you do not want that. And
as long as Kelsey can get open, yes.
I mean, we saw Juju had a lot better game, MVS
is not what he's about what I expected in Kansas City, but
and the thing is, he can still, like, we saw when Marquez Valdes-Scantling was on the Packers years prior.
But he
has that big playability, so
Rodgers
it's not like
picked other receivers. Yeah, and then next year he was something. So
drops were always an issue for him. So I mean, it's the big playability that everyone likes about him.
I think fast, big wide receivers have issues with drops for some reason. That just seems to be a thing.
Especially for the Packers, huh?
Yep.
But you also have Colts versus Titans. That's an interesting one. It seems like a lot of these AFC South games are fun to watch. But what do you got with this one?
I got the Colts winning that game.
You have the Colts winning. I mean, last year I believe they did go 1-1 with their division games between the Colts and Titans. Obviously, Titans already won in Indy, so I could see it. There's a lot of questions. I know the Colts had a better second half this past season, but I don't know if I can trust the Colts right now. I would probably pick the Titans, but I'm not picking this game. My next game I have is Falcons-Bengals. This is probably a game when the season started I wouldn't pick as a game to watch, but I feel like this will be a fun game. This Falcons team is one of the best running teams we've seen, even without Cordell Patterson in the league. But they also, Mariota, while he hasn't been perfect, has put up some pretty good games passing the ball as well. We saw last week against the 49ers how he was playing pretty good overall, and that defense was turning the ball over.
I think with him, just like I'll take the statement you just said, I think he's playing so well because when you play for a team that's supposed to be bad, your pressure is super low.
I agree, but this could be really a game to show where either of these two teams can kind of be right now. We have the Bengals, who have been struggling. They looked a lot better against the Saints, but they're still struggling to be this kind of high-scoring team we expected them to be. And now they're going against a defense that's actually, I would say, pretty good. That is still maybe even a little
I mean, I wasn't
underrated.
that sold on the Bengals even when they made it to the Super Bowl. I think
Most people weren't. I mean, how many games were they the underdogs?
I think talent-wise, they probably shouldn't have made it that far. But that being said, I still think they still lack some talent. You know, like, I'm not sure they have the defense that they... Like, there are certain players on their defense that are playing Super Bowl level still, but not many.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and that's the thing. They kind of started rough early last year, and, you know, this is kind of the time where they start to kick it back up, and this will be, I feel like this is a very good, if they do, but this would be a very good week for them to kind of start that, if they can. So we shall see. I have also the Bengals winning this game at home. But this will be a fun game to watch, obviously. And for my third game, I have another game I probably wouldn't have put up here coming into the season. And this is going to be a fun game to watch in the sense of we still really don't know what to expect with these teams. And this is really kind of like the Bengals and Falcons, a game where this could kind of put the trajectory right for one of these teams, and that is the Seahawks and Chargers. Now, we've seen the Chargers have struggled a lot. They're passing it probably way more than they should, and their running game is just not where it should be. Obviously, you know, there's the injuries to that line that have not helped, but this could be a really fun game, and we've seen this Seahawks team kind of play with a lot of these teams, whether they should have or should not have been in these games, and I'm going to pick them to win this game.
That's interesting. I mean, I thought about this game, but Seattle scares me to pick at anything, so I just couldn't do it.
That's fair, but what do you got for your third game?
I think you got to go Giants versus Jags, only because... from what I've seen, they got Jacksonville favored to win this game.
Yes, that's kind of something I would tell all of you right now. Put a little bit on the Giants in the spread. The
Jags are playing better than they have in many years, but are the Giants going to stay on this hot streak? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think their offense is firing on like 8 cylinders right now. I'm not even going to say all, I'll just say 8, you know. But because Saquon seems to be back to younger Saquon. And they're getting some good quarterback play, so.
Yeah, I agree. And it almost feels like this team is like, okay, how long? Everyone keeps saying, how long are they going to keep winning? And they just keep winning. So I think that they'll be perfectly fine. If I'm not picking this game, but I would say the Giants win.
No, I think the Giants win as well, but I see why the Jacksonville's favored, and just the outside looking in perspective, but I don't know about if I'd actually agree with
I
it.
would. The Jags right now aren't. I mean, they had a good first half against the Colts, but they've struggled to play a whole game, and I think when you're looking at a team that plays a really good second half in the Giants, I would go Giants here as well. I'm not going to. That's not a game I picked, but just something to keep y'all's minds on it. But something I really wanted to talk about today. So we've seen Russell Wilson struggle a lot this year, to say the least. That whole team struggle, other than the defense, special teams, obviously, both top 5. But we've seen Russell Wilson struggle in his new situation. Obviously, he got traded there, and that got me to thinking. I would say there was 3 really big trades this offseason. There was a couple others, but I think there was 3 really big ones. And I just wanted to kind of look back at them and see kind of like, can we determine a winner or a loser to these trades yet? And these 3 trades are Deshaun Watson to the Cleveland Browns for a massive amount. I'll go into more detail here in a second. Russell Wilson from Seattle to Denver, and then Devontae Adams from the Packers to the Raiders. Now, let's go with this Watson one here first. I feel like the longer the season goes, the more this is turning into a Browns complete dumpster fire of a trade.
Yep, I agree, because you got a guy who has only been a fill-in starter most of his career. That's actually not playing that terrible for them.
I agree.
I don't think maybe Watson puts him at 3-3, maybe.
Yeah, that team overall that defense has allowed way too many points. While yes, partially that is because the offense seems to be turning the ball over a lot, and they've relied on Jacoby Brissett, I feel like, a lot, when maybe they should be relying on the run game they have. I mean, you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but they've definitely... The thing is, Deshaun Watson is still... I mean, he's suspended 11 games this year. There's a lot of not rumors, but there's speculation that there's still more to become of his whole situation. If you don't know the situation, I'm not going to get into it, but if he doesn't play this whole season, not only do they not even get to see what he is like, but they traded away a first this year and next year. Well, not this year, next year. They traded a first last year, this year, and next year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think you can even gauge Watson as a quarterback, because the Texans were always losing, pretty much. So he was always throwing, to be fair. I've never been like... I mean, I don't think he was terrible. I don't think he was a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback either, though.
I mean, there was the year they went to the NFC Championship. We're up 28-0 against the Chiefs, but then the Chiefs came back.
Yeah, I know, but for most of his career.
For most of it, I mean, he was definitely, I would say, a very skilled quarterback. But the fact they...
Yeah, but, I mean, I don't know... Skilled quarterback is a term that can be... You could have said that about X, Y, and Z quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing, I mean, it's not only the fact that he was like this skilled quarterback, but you brought the baggage along and traded a hefty price for it. Not only, as things stand right now, the first that the Browns traded that will be in this upcoming draft is the 6th overall pick right now. And let me just read you a couple of the things they were able to get from the picks they used in the last draft. Kenyon Green, an offensive guard who has been starting for them for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Damon Pierce in the 4th round, who I would say is the offensive rookie of the year right now. And then some other guys who really haven't played yet. But those are 2 guys right there that are kind of...
The Texans have a lot of room to build.
Oh, exactly. I mean, right now they're looking at 2 potential top 6 picks, their own, and Cleveland's.
They're looking at a quarterback.
This is potentially, yeah. I mean, Davis Mills hasn't really shown to be that franchise quarterback. Bring in a quarterback, get themselves maybe a receiver. They have money. Lovie Smith is kind of, I would say, deserves to still be the head coach after this year. And there you go.
Cooks is not the same receiver. I mean, he's getting older now.
He is, but I mean, there's always rumors on if they'll trade him. And
I think they're paying him too much money for a team like that to waste.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's such an unfortunate career for
his value is still. I mean, it's not high. It's trade value right now for any position is not very high. I don't think,
I mean, we'll talk about them here in a second.
I think he's worth more than Robbie Anderson.
Would you? I mean, I definitely would. What about? I mean, obviously we're Bears fans, but what Packers? Do you think that's a receiver they could maybe target to trade for?
No.
No.
I think they'll see him as too. I think they'll see him as too old.
Potentially. I mean,
I guess it depends on his price.
That's true. A lot of this depends on.
I don't think the Packers are trading for anybody. I think they think their receiving core is fine.
I mean, if anything shows, they never try to do fancy midseason moves anyway.
Nope.
But, I mean, to be fair, did we ever expect Davante Adams to be traded? So let's move right into the Davante Adams trade. Davante Adams was traded for a first and second that was made in the draft last year. And with those picks, they drafted Quay Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia, who's been starting for them pretty much all season. And then they used their second rounder combined with the second rounder they got for this to trade up for Christian Watson. So in some way, this was pretty much Davante Adams for Quay Walker, the linebacker.
It's like a wash, in a way.
In a way, but
as of right now,
while the Raiders aren't, they're 1-4 right now, they're still getting more value out of Davante Adams than anything the Packers have so far gotten. Obviously, this can change. They're still rookies. But that defense for the Packers is not looking good. Christian Watson can't find himself in the starting rotation.
I mean, yeah, I think the Raiders right now are still winning that trade.
They're winning it, but by a very, very slim margin, I would say.
Yep.
But, I mean, at the time, this was a very big trade that we thought. I mean, I know at the time I called both of these teams kind of winners for the trade that they were able to.
I don't think you can ever pay that kind of draft pick price for
not only that, but they made him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL and gave him this very long-term contract. And yes, they have plenty of time. I mean, especially with that system, it's from everything I've heard, it's a complicated system. It's going to take time, but they're still putting up. I mean, fantasy-wise, it's been very good these last couple of weeks. But actual football-wise, they're 1-4, so you kind of had to take everything with a grain of salt. But still plenty of time. They can figure it out. Probably won't. They're in a tough division. But the third trade, speaking of that exact same division, the third trade I really want to talk to everyone about is the Russell Wilson trade. This, of all three of these trades, was the heftiest. The Watson trade was a lot. The Watson trade is a lot. But
I'm going to start out this one out and just say I would do it again right now.
If you were which side?
Either.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't. The Broncos are so desperate to get back to the Peyton Manning years that if I'm a Broncos, it just makes sense. You know what I mean? Just because they have had terrible luck drafting quarterbacks. Terrible.
True.
Before Peyton Manning and after. And I think if everybody would never have guessed Russell Wilson played this bad, but we had, who knows? You know what I mean? It could. And I think they're gonna turn it around. I don't think they're gonna win anything crazy, but I don't think Russell Wilson's. I think he's got a couple years left, so I don't think it's anything that you have to worry about too much.
Denver better hope so, because they also signed him to a long-term contract, making him a very high-paid quarterback.
Well, if he retires, because most of it, some of it goes away, but I don't think he retires for 3 more years.
I don't think so, and there's been a lot. people are a lot of people are actually not even putting the blame on this season on Russell Wilson. A lot of people are calling, Nathaniel Hackett such a horrible head coach. It's more his fault than anything. They both have to take the blame. You don't just trade for a Hall of Fame quarterback and play like this. But I mean, yes, that's kind of the unfortunate thing of looking at trades kind of right now, that so much can happen.
If you look at
so much can happen.
Packers assistants and their record as head coaches is not very good.
Currently, no.
Andy Reid.
Oh, I mean, if we're going that long, I'm sure there's a couple others.
No,
but when you think of,
I'm just saying. But you know what I mean. But you can go back to Joe Philbin, and there's a whole list of them.
Yeah, that's true. But when you look at the two rookie head coaches right now, Nathaniel Hackett and not Matt Eber. I don't know why I thought Eberflus was there, but he wasn't.
It's our offensive coordinator.
That's why. Oops. But
it's because you can't judge. The Packers haven't really ever been judged without a good quarterback. So you can't. I don't think you can value. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think you can.
Well, they haven't had a bad quarterback in
a coordinator's
50 years?
value without. When you have talent there, I just don't think you can sometimes. But.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, look at Belichick and the New England Patriots. Think about how many times they have coordinators or assistant coaches.
Very much.
That they leave and they have little to no success. Obviously, Vrabel in Tennessee is one of the very, very few outliers. But for the most part, I mean, Mike McDaniel's getting his second stint at a head coach. It's not looking good. We've had. There's so many I can't even name them all, mostly because they're so horrible. I like to forget them. Matt Patricia comes to mind.
Romeo.
But Romeo. I mean, Romeo Crennel was always a really good coordinator elsewhere. He just could never make it as a head coach.
Some guys just can't hack it as a head coach.
That's true too. I mean, there's some really talented coordinators out there that just were either in a horrible system.
But I think when you're a coordinator, I know when you're a coordinator, you have one thing to worry about. But when you're head coach, you have a bunch.
A million things. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I like about some of these head coaches, where they let their coordinators kind of take over, and they are strictly head coaches. You see that in Chicago with Matt Eberflus. You see that with Tampa when when Bruce Arians was the head coach there. He let his coordinators do almost all the work.
Yeah. And
it can be successful. It cannot be successful. You just need to find that kind of.
You need the right coordinator. That's what it is.
You need a good coaching staff overall, from head coach to your interns. I mean, we saw that with Indy. We've seen a lot of Indy's coordinators, assistant head coaches, and whatnot from Frank Wright's original coaching tree. They're all leaving now, and we see a lot of issues on that roster. How much of that is because these coaches are leaving?
Yeah, because I don't think the head coaches have that much. Bill Belichick does, but I don't know how much, because I think so much. It's just like a job. What is a job? But you know what I mean. It's a lot of times we'll call it, let's say, the general manager, or not in football terms, but in, we'll say business terms, they're so out of touch with how things work and operate, because they're only focusing on, that they don't even know how. That's why they rely on their coordinators to do it, I think. But
yeah, and obviously every system is different, but yeah. But going back to the Russell Wilson, I would say that right now I would say the Seahawks have the advantage of it, but it's still, I think, too early to tell. And that's with all these trades. All they've kind of signed, they all signed long-term contracts to their respective teams, so this will be a long-term grade, obviously. But I thought this would be a good thing to talk about kind of this week, because Russell Wilson's been playing so bad. I'm like, hey, he wasn't the only big trade this offseason.
That is correct.
But that's all we kind of got for you this week. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow. Do any button you see that's positive, just click it. I promise it'll be okay. And keep on the lookout. I'm gonna try to get some bets out there. Keep track of, especially Twitter. That's where we're definitely the most active. If you have any fantasy advice, betting advice, come at us. We'll get you where you need to be. And just enjoy sports. Right now is the sports time to be a sports
soak it all
fan.
up, because there isn't.
Hockey's going right now. Baseball playoffs. Basketball just started. Football, college, anything else that's going on. Now's the time to enjoy it all. Soak it in, because it's not going to be here all that long.
That's correct.
But with that, have a good weekend, everybody. I'll see you later.
Later, guys.
Thanks for listening to Audible Sportscast, your home for all things sports.